it all resonates with me. So it's just a pleasure.
There's opportunity because this happened. And I can figure out what that opportunity is.
It's very hard to be wildly successful at anything you're not obsessed with.
Oh, I love that. Welcome back to I Can Fit That In. Today's guest brings wisdom earned through experience, reflection, and reinvention across decades of life, leadership, and impact. Tony Wilkins is a mentor, investor, executive coach, and author who has spent his life navigating the complexities of business, identity, and growth with deep intentionality. He is someone who has lived multiple versions of himself personally and professionally, and now helps others do the same at their own pace. Today, Tony supports founders, executives, and investors in aligning who they are with how they lead and what they create. His new book, The Art of Angel Investing, isn't just about investments, it's about meaning. Tony brings us to reimagine failure not as an ending, but as an insight. As he puts it, every outcome delivers either triumph or tuition. Both can move us forward if we are paying attention. In today's conversation, Tony and I will talk about growth through the decades, redefining success, leading with self-awareness, and how intentionality changes not only what we invest in, but how we show up in the world. So let's dive in. Tony, welcome.
Thanks, Erin. Always good to talk to you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, what the listeners don't know yet, and they will quickly understand, is that you and I have known each other for years. And I personally have not only been inspired by you, but I feel like you are just a kindred soul and a like-hearted, like-minded human being in my circle. And I'm grateful for you.
Same here. Same here. I would like to think I have the distinction of being the first person to read whatever you put out on media and respond enthusiastically because, to your point, it all resonates with me. So it's just a pleasure to be in your company, to be on this podcast, and as always, to spend some time with you.
Well, thank you so much. I know I always do reply to you when I send out a newsletter or something on social, and you always send me a very thoughtful message. And I just always let you know that really fills me up, because that's why I put the stuff out there, right? I put it out there so that it does resonate, bring value, bring insight, or even just sometimes help people think a little differently, right? So thank you for that. I would love to start with your background. I mean, let's go back to, the young years of Tony Wilkins and what you want people to understand about who you were before all of the career accomplishments and getting to where you are now.
Right. I think that I was, almost a very typical kid of my generation. I went to school, I came home, I threw my books on my bed, I grabbed something to eat and went out in the back and played in the alley with my buddies who would show up. At about 7th grade, I thought my career was going to be with the White Sox, and I would replace Louis Aparicio at shortstop. So, I played a lot of sports out in the backyard. As I got older, I realized, hey, I might have to actually go to college. And when that started to come along, my dad, a man of very simple words, said, hey, if you always want to have a job, you should be an engineer. And I said, well, what kind of engineer? Like a Metra engineer? Or he said, no, electrical engineer. And he was right. I would always have a job as an electrical engineer. And in my early days, up until an abrupt stop at 23 when I got laid off after 1 year at Chrysler Corporation, Erin, that really kind of changed. I feel like that was when I went from being a kid to an adult, when I realized, nobody's coming to pay my bills for me. And even a large corporation might not do this. I was blessed to be that person who was taught at a very early age that things happen for you, not to you. And I took that as maybe the first big benchmark milestone between being a child and being an adult, that I now have to look out for myself and those who I'm responsible for.
That is such wisdom to gain at a young age, right? You said you were 23 when you were laid off from Chrysler. And at that point, you started to understand that life happens for you and not to you. It takes people decades and decades and decades to understand that, if they even ever get there, right? So stepping out of a victimhood mindset, not being a victim to life, and actually saying to yourself, you know what, there's opportunity because this happened. And I can figure out what that opportunity is. So where did that take you next?
Well, at that point, I thought, okay, I need several forms of income, and this is how the book really got started many years ago. In that, in the early '80s, Microsoft and Apple were starting to really become preeminent in our mindset. Not to the level they are today, but they were beginning. And I thought, Erin, somebody gave those guys some money when they were getting started. And Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were not born that much before me, so they're kind of like big brothers, seniors in college and high school that I would look up to. And I thought, who gave them their start? And I didn't know who they were, but I just assumed that they were somebody that wrote a check or helped them out. And I thought, if I could be that guy that writes those checks to those people who are brilliant, because I didn't think I was brilliant. I didn't have the patience or the insight or the inspiration to start a business. And I knew people who did that. I was like, well, let me maybe just put a few dollars with them and see if it can turn into what I now call an intelligent lottery ticket. And anything that you do and believe deeply for a very, very long time, I learned, is something that you're likely to get to be very good at. Sam Altman had a quote just recently that I read that said, it's very hard to be wildly successful at anything you're not obsessed with. And I was obsessed with financial independence, and that seemed like the way to get started.
Oh, I love that. So you had a pretty long career in the wealth management business.
Right.
And you can walk us through kind of where that came into your life. But what I'm really curious about is that trajectory of getting into that business and really, utilizing that to serve you too, right? Building your network as you're building your net worth, right? And that of
Right.
others.
Exactly.
But also, what was a turning point or a pivotal moment in your life where you decided to even rethink that and how you were living and leading your own life?
Sure. I think that another thing I think I've been blessed with, and I encourage people to develop this in their lives, I always knew when something was really going to work for me, whether it was a friend that I met or a sport that nobody knows anything about that I absolutely love. But I was always very fortunate to resonate with those things that spoke to me and then pursue them. And about 2 years after I got laid off, 3 years after I got laid off, a friend of mine was involved in a big merger takeover or hostile takeover event. And after it was over with, he said, Tony, we paid these guys $9 million for 6 weeks worth of work and gave them $1 million bonus for getting it done so quickly. Now, I'm not great at algebra, but math, when there's a dollar sign in front of it, I can do pretty well. And I said, $1 million bonus, and here's how much money I'm making as an engineer. What did those guys do again? So they're investment bankers. I said, great. I'll go back to business school and become an investment banker. But that was a click. That was a point at which I realized I couldn't be an engineer anymore. That just was not going to work. And Erin, people say, oh, you were so courageous to drop everything you already knew and try something else. It wasn't really courage from my perspective. It was a clear understanding of what I wanted and where I wanted to go, and understanding that something was a faster way to get there. Now, nobody hired me as an investment banker. Nobody. But again, okay, well, what's next? And I kept talking to people, and somebody introduced me to her husband, who was the legal counsel for an asset management firm. Now, I had heard of asset management, but I said, it's got to be closer to investment banking than engineering. So I went. These people hired me in 2 weeks of interviews. And the job was keeping wealthy people wealthy. So people who had made money in a broad variety of ways. It was my job to listen to what they did, because they loved talking about how they made their money, and then manage it. And I was fascinated at the many ways that people had made money. One of my first clients, who was about my age, had made a small fortune by taking free promotional reels of NASCAR races from Ford and Chrysler and Penske and Quaker Oil and taping them together, splicing them together on reel-to-reel tapes and selling them on the one ads in car company magazines. And we were managing his money. And I just thought at that point, I became so respectful of the many ways people could make money. It just really threw fuel on the fire to find those people, invest with those people, even when other people didn't have the foresight or the vision, because I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to have money coming in from people who were pursuing their visions and help them flourish in the way they wanted to. So all these things kind of, it's funny, the book really catalyzes and categorizes and collects all these experiences. And I'm so excited that it's out in the world these days.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like it's going to help so many people who not only are interested in, their own financial freedom and, directing influence with, money they make, or finding people to invest in their own companies and their own ideas, and also inspire people, to live life maybe a little bit differently and to look at things a little bit differently, because you also walked away from your really successful corporate career at some point, Tony.
That's right.
So what was that sort of mindset shift that allowed you to step into something different than what is the linear path? Because that one was easy to stay on.
That one was easy to stay on, but you talk about authenticity, and I think I weave into that energy, and it's a question of where are you finding more energy? Now, just like you on Wall Street, phenomenal career with big brand name companies, you could have stayed on that path. But I think where you and I resonate, and where I try to get people to become more sensitive in their own spaces, what feels good to you? Where are you getting energy? And more importantly, where are you finding your energy drain away? I was talking to a client this morning. I said, things that you do that you don't have to do, that you do just because your mom or your dad or your culture or your community expect you to do it, are like leaking faucets in your kitchen. It's not going to kill you, but it's going to drive up your energy bill. It's going to make poor use of natural resources, and it's going to irritate you. You fix that faucet, and every time you walk by, you'll feel a sense of pride. You'll have a little energy, and you have more bandwidth to do other stuff that you'd be thinking about. And I think for me, I was blessed to see increasing ways to more effectively, efficiently, and enjoyably pursue the thing that really burned inside of me, which was the sense of financial independence. And now, having achieved what I would discern to be enough financial independence, what's next? Well, what you do and what I do for a living these days is that energy I get, helping people flourish in whatever way they want to flourish, and peeling away the unwritten rules and the constraints that they put on themselves. The Eagles have a song that says, the song is Already Gone, for those who want to go listen to it. There's a line in that song that says, so many times it happens that we live our lives in chains and we never even know we have the key. And to me, that's what a great life is all about. Trying to understand what's next. What can I do? How can I best be the version of myself that hasn't gotten here yet? And I'll say one other quote and I'll stop. One of my favorite quotes in this regard comes from Matthew McConaughey, who, when asked one day who are his heroes, he said, me, 10 years from now. So maintain that vision of who you want to authentically be is so very important.
You said so many insight-packed things there, and one that's resonating just deepest at this moment that I want to touch on further. You just walked the listeners through energy drains, energy leaks,
right?
And being clear on where something feels misaligned within your own being, right? Is it mentally? Is it emotionally? Is it just physically? Is it your space or the people in your life? Or is it spiritually? Is there something that just feels like, there's something missing or something's off? being able to pay attention to that, I
Yeah.
think, is the number one piece of discernment and intuition that people can get in tune with. And then they can start to say, well, okay, if this feels misaligned, if I mentally, if I emotionally feel distraught about something, or if I'm physically feeling drained, what is it? And then how can I patch that or shift that, right? What would you say is one of those things that you noticed in particular was draining your energy for some time, and that you chose, whether through a mindset shift or through a ritual or a new way of being? What is it that you chose in order to help reset or realign yourself?
I was diagnosed with the very bad disease of painting people with the Tony Wilkins brush, which means I don't think I'm very special, and if I can do it, of course anybody can do it. But I had to be weaned off of that. I had to be weaned off of that because there are some people who aren't ready, who aren't going to, who are identifying with the pain or the problems that they have. And as much as I might try to spend time and energy and thought to reverse that, I was evangelizing to people who weren't ready to hear. I had to, Erin, catch myself saying, Tony, are you trying to force this person to drink the water and they're not thirsty yet? And I still fall into that trap a little bit. I still pull the paintbrush out, dipped in Tony Wilkins paint when I'm trying to help somebody out. But I've gotten better at saying, Tony, your gifts, your insight, your perspective, your energy would be so much more well applied, appreciated, and effective if you focus on reaching the people who are looking for what you want help with, for spending time with folks who are looking for some support. And, this in 2024, I decided in 2025, I was going to lean into that, free myself of the energy of trying to work with folks who weren't quite ready yet or may not ever be ready, and lever my efforts for people who might be able to use it. And the book, again, was that way to use, I think, my energy more productively to put something out in the world so that people who are interested in investing in angel investing would see a book on the news, see a book on the shelf or in Amazon and say, The Art of Angel Investing. That's interesting. And then they could go and do that. So I have found that spending time and energy on people and things with whom you are aligned is so much more fun, interesting, exciting, fulfilling, and profitable than trying to fix, repair, adjust, coerce people who just are not ready yet. That's been the big epiphany for me. And it's a work in progress, Erin.
Yeah, but I love that one. And I too practice that, because it's easy to say yes to everything and everyone, and then to get yourself so energetically invested that when someone isn't making progress or not practicing what you're asking them to, or not applying what you're teaching them, it can be quite frustrating, right? And then that frustration eats away at you. And then, of course, it eats away at the relationship. It builds a tension in the relationship. So it's ultimately not worth it to try to push things with someone who doesn't really want to do the work or doesn't want to go there.
It just isn't. And
Yeah.
I learned something also. They say you have a gut feeling about something.
Yes.
If your awareness of this is heightened, you will begin to feel it in your gut when you're having a conversation with somebody. You just go, this is not working well. And I learned recently that it is in fact the vagus nerve
Yes.
that emanates from your stomach up into your brain that's tapping you on the shoulder and saying, let it go,
Right.
Walk away.
Right.
So it's a spiritual, am I being the best person I can be? It's a mental, am I feeling lifted or drained? It's a physical sensation that this is not working. And once you begin to develop the habit of being aware of where your energy is going, it's just an amazing feeling to know that you're in control.
Yes.
Of how you're feeling when interacting with people.
Absolutely. I mean, that's self-aware leadership, right? Like, you are leading yourself with self-awareness, and then therefore you bring that to others. The more that we understand ourselves, the more we can understand others. And I like to think that in the corporate world, for high achievers, high performers, executives, if they could show up like that more often, and they could say, something feels a little off in our relationship. Can we talk through this? Because I'm sensing tension, and I'm sensing that I'm really drained when I'm around you lately. Let's talk about why that is. If people could just be that transparent, and then they could heal those rifts or those things instead of skirting them under the rug and acting like they'll go away. But that level of self-awareness the world is not there yet, right? We are all working on that in our own ways. And some of it is unconscious, and for others, it's very conscious. But I would like to say that, with, for example, this podcast, the whole point of I Can Fit That In is that I can fit in the things that matter most to me. And I only know what matters most to me when I choose alignment by removing what doesn't matter or what doesn't fit in my life. And so you walked us through that beautifully with letting things go, or letting go of trying to push things or force things. And also choosing to give your energy where not only is it welcomed and invited, but it serves you and the other person or people. So I'd like to talk about that with your book. So this book, The Art of Angel Investing, by you putting it out in the world, you are inviting others into the world of angel investing. You're inviting them to understand and to learn and to grow through applying their funds, or maybe asking for funds from investors, and helping their businesses grow and or their ideas flourish. And at the same time, do that for others. So what do you want people to know? What's the number one thing you want them to know about angel investing?
That it depends on their success, and the level of success. Number one should be acutely and precisely tied to their objectives. It's like any other endeavor in life. What are you trying to do? And if you're just spending money on angel investments that people come by and tell you about, eventually you're going to get tired of the merry-go-round and the time it takes for those things to bring you intelligent lottery ticket type of returns. What I really hope people will take away from this book is that if they don't read anything else in the book, just read the part that says, be very clear on what you're trying to do. The rest of that could be angel investing or anything else in life, relationships, children, work, fitness, but know what you're trying to do. And once you know what you're trying to do, the rest of the book lays out the playbook, the framework, everything. I will say this, and I don't think anybody would be mad at me who has a CFA or is an investment guru. Everything you need to know to start your own angel investing journey is in this 106-page book. Now, the only reason it's not 4 pages is because I add a plethora of my mistakes and my journey and my triumphs and the things I learned along the way and the nuances and how to build my framework so that people can take away from it what they will. But the primary objective is know what you want to do first, and then this is the handbook for helping you get there.
I love that. And 106 pages is an easy read. So I feel like it'll be so helpful for people just to pick that up and, thumb through it, browse through it, read the whole thing. It's not like you're asking people to read a 400-page book.
Right.
Because we all know that that's a daunting exercise these days for most.
Yeah. It's also, I took a page out of the book called The 48 Laws of Power, which is written almost like an owner's manual for a car. You can look at the back of it and see, what problem am I facing? Is it deal sourcing? Is it investment process? Is it how do I sell? And then go to the chapter and read a couple of pages about that.
Yes.
Put it back on the shelf and go forward. So Erin, I am tickled about this book. And it took me 12 years to write it because I finally had to get in my journey to say, I'm going to show my best version of me to the world, and anybody who wants to pick it up, great. If nobody picks it up, great. But I think a few people have already told me that it's been helpful. So it's already done more than I hoped it would do. And hopefully it'll do more than I can even imagine.
I'm sure it will. I know that for a fact. And I'm so excited for you to have put it out in the world. and for people to get their hands on it. So congratulations on that, Tony. It's
Thank you
a
so
big
much.
milestone for sure.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to leave my listeners with the ritual that matters most to you in your life, I have an idea of what it might be.
I think you probably do.
But why don't you enlighten us on what that is?
Count your blessings. Count your blessings. I have a brother who is a trauma surgeon. He's been a trauma surgeon for 36 years. He's done hundreds of thousands of operations where bad things had happened to people. And we were talking about something one time. He said, Tony, it could always be worse. And it flashed through my mind all the stories of people who had been mangled in car crashes or shot, stabbed, tree fell on them. Even as a young child, Erin, before I could drive, I would see somebody's very fancy car parked in a handicap spot and think to myself, I don't have any problems. As you know, I'm the CFO of a company in Nairobi called Hello Tractor. And between leaving my house in Chicago and arriving at my Airbnb in Nairobi, a moment doesn't go by that I'm glad to be living in the United States, speaking English, clean food, air, and water. And that practice of gratitude will shut your pity party down really quick and let you get on with thriving the way that you should and would want to.
Oh, I love that. That is it's so full of wisdom, and thank you for sharing. So beautiful. Yeah. So Tony, if people want to look you up and find you, we will share some of that on the podcast platform page, but why don't you tell them right now where they can find you?
Sure. I have a website now called properangelinvesting.com. And I have for a long time put everything that I've done on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn and properangelinvesting.com is where you can reach me in the book. Like everything else, and somebody told me they think that children think that babies come from this place. The book is available on Amazon.
So order your book and your baby on Amazon. That's right. Amazing. Thank you, Tony, so much for being here. To everyone listening, you know what to do. Please like, share, subscribe, and help the show grow and help the community thrive. Tony, thanks again.
Thank you, Erin. Always a pleasure. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye now.